We're happy to welcome from Washington now, aviation safety and security specialist Vernon Grose. He's the chairman of Omega Systems and a former member of the National Transportation Safety Board. Welcome, Mr. Grose. The pilots saying they were distracted by their laptop computers. Is that explanation considered more acceptable than just saying you were sound asleep?
Well, I don't think it has much acceptability at all. As a matter of fact, when you think, Brad, about commercial flying, there's a surrender of your control. As they close that door, you surrender all control of your life. But it's also a double surrender. The crew should surrender their personal interest and their concerns, and that's what they didn't do.
You've written articles that explains the greatest enemy to airline pilots is boredom. That technology, you say, has reduced humans in the cockpit to just monitoring the computers on board the plane.
Well, I have, and that's certainly a valid thing to be concerned about here, and evidently they replaced that boredom with their concern about their future, because Northwest had been accepted now as a part of Delta, and Delta had put out new regulations for these crew, and so they were going through this and very occupied about that, but they completely lost the concern for the 150 people behind them.
Yeah. So what do airline pilots typically do, Mr. Grose, when they get into the cockpit once they've taken off?
Well, you have an interesting thing, Brad, because I've flown jump seat on the A320 with Northwest myself, and you'll find many times that they don't even know each other. The two crew will come on and shake hands and introduce each other. On the other hand, they could be longtime friends, but the thing is, what goes on in there, once they're airborne and shortly thereafter, they go on autopilot.
So so I'm clear, what do they do to beat boredom most of the time? Do they read? Do they look at their laptop, play video games, or are their eyes always on the controls there, even when it's on the computer?
Well, they are sitting there, but it is a challenging thing in a sense to guard against boredom, because they're sitting there for several hours in a cooped-up situation, only 18 inches away from their nose are all these beautiful instruments, but all they do is watch them. Yeah. And they were supposedly monitoring radio communication, but they didn't hear it.
So how common is this situation where pilots lose situational awareness, I think the pilots termed it?
Yes, and whether or not it's sleeping, the situational awareness, it covers a broader scope, but the thing is, these people have to realize that they have surrendered their right to their own private life, and they hadn't done that.
So do you have any idea how often this sort of thing happens? I mean, as an air passenger, I'm kind of getting kind of concerned since last week's incident.
Well, I think there is a reason to be concerned in the sense that this is not the first time. As long ago as 20 years ago, people flew for 100 miles without waking up. So it does happen. However, there's got to be correction for that. We just can't wring our hands about it. And I think probably they're going to put a fairly loud oral warning when they should start their descent into an airport like Minneapolis.
And what do you think? Is this going to be a firing offense for these two pilots?
I think they may have forfeited their right to have the responsibility for 150 people on their hands, and they're sitting up there violating company rules by looking at computers. Yes, I think they may have their careers at an end.
Pilots of a U.S. passenger jet overshot its destination by more than 200 kilometers, telling investigators today they were distracted by their laptop computers. Aviation safety and security specialist Vernon Grose speaking with us from Washington. Appreciate it, sir.
You're welcome.